happy to bring on Ansar Khan of MLive, and I don't want to reveal your age here, but you've been on the beat for a long time here. How long have you been covering? I think it's since 1987.
Yeah, no, not quite that long, but yeah, I've been. In fact, I just had my 25th anniversary at MLive last month, and before that, I covered them for several years with Gilpin Press.
Yeah, it's been a long time, so we're glad to get your takes on everything here. It's great writing, and make sure to go to mlive.com and follow them here. I think I'm going to start here. I've watched all the games. And they're a fun team to watch. They're, as long as your blood pressure is okay, because you gotta make sure to keep it together while you're watching them, because they never make you feel too comfortable, no matter what if they're behind or if they're ahead. And we saw that in the overtime loss a couple games ago. But what do you make of the last game here? It was funny to me. I actually got out of the coverage because I was watching the Lions game at the same time, and then it was revealed to me that there was actually a fight after I ditched out of the game. So are we making too big of a deal about defending the net here? I want to get your take on the whole situation with Jonathan Quick and the Appleton shot just after the horn.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, Quick's a bit of a hothead. I think he overreacted. Appleton just, the game was over. A couple seconds after the buzzer, shot it into the open net. Quick, who was, of course, on the bench for the extra skater, didn't like it and charged out there and, went after him. I just think he overreacted. It wasn't a big deal, and it shouldn't have been a big deal. It's not like situations you see where a player might, fire a puck at a goalie like just a split second or so after the whistle blows during play, and of course that always leads to a scrum.
Yeah, I get it if it's something where, okay, they might not be ready for it, and then you're firing the puck at him, and then he's got to play that so it doesn't hit him in the wrong spot or what have you. But he wasn't even in the game. He had obviously been pulled so that they could try to get the equalizer. But the fact, because I harp on fans sometimes for this same kind of thing, that the game is slower for us. We see it from a different perspective because you got all the TV angles. You can see things in slow motion, and a lot of these people are making split-second decisions. But that's basically what Quick is getting mad about. I mean, Appleton hit that. He went into the swing as time was expiring. It's not like he waited a minute and then decided, okay, I'm going to try to hit it into this goal. It was as time was expiring, and he was trying to ensure that they get the win. I didn't really think that there was anything poor from like a sportsmanship standpoint there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree with you. Quick obviously, took exception to it. Felt Appleton, was trying to show him up or trying to show the team up, but I didn't see that as being the case at all.
Quick is an apt name for his temper. Apparently, that also is his last name and a good name for his temper. But I'm curious what you think of this team so far here, because they're an intriguing team for me. Obviously, we've gotten to see some young guys in there now. Danielson's in the mix, and you've got some young guys that are giving early returns. Finney has been a key name here, but I'm curious what you've thought of the season so far, since you have been on the beat for a long time. Obviously, this current arc has been going for a long time. The fans are getting a little bit restless with the Iser plan and all of that, but he had to fill the cupboards back up. They were pretty empty. Now there's a lot of young guys. They're getting everybody slotted in, and I have to imagine you've been pretty happy with the start to the season relative to maybe what we thought, given kind of the relatively minor off-season moves.
Yeah, it is a difficult team to read. They've had highs and lows. The low being the season opener, a terrible performance against the Canadiens, and then that Buffalo collapse. on Saturday night. And they've also had 5-game winning streak and some highs. It was very difficult to read, to gauge exactly what this team is. But I do think that unlike previous teams, clearly there's a shift in philosophy here in that they started out the season having 3 rookies on the season opening roster. When it looked like before training camp that none of them were going to make it, they forced their way into the roster. They gave them a chance. 2 of them are still here. Branstad Nygaard obviously needs some seasoning in Grand Rapids. They brought up Nate Danielson. Now they're going to give him a look too. He's been pretty quiet, so they'll see over the next few games whether they want him to stick around or whether they're going to send him back to get more development time. But I think it's good that they are giving these young players a chance because it just wasn't working the old way. Just continuing to trot out the veterans who are underperforming. They need to see what these kids can do, and they're seeing it with Finney. They're seeing it with Standing Pellica, and now Danielson's going to get a chance. And I suspect when Carter Mazer returns from his injury in Grand Rapids that he'll soon be up as well. So it's a different mindset from the front office, and it shows that their patience is wearing thin with the old method of just letting these kids overripe while some veterans underperform up here.
I think there's a lot of reason for hope. You highlighted some of them because, like you said, you had to do something a little bit different, and they took a couple different approaches there. They tried to solidify the goalie situation, and it's amazing to me that obviously they've been in different situations, but that Talbot has been really the more rock solid goalie, but the fact that they have more of a 1A and 1B, whichever one you consider Talbot or Gibson, that's a solid veteran combo to then oversee whatever the transition is to the young guys. Then you've got those young guys basically at all positions throughout the system. You've highlighted some of them, and then you also acquired some other guys. Gibson was the guy that everybody was talking about in the offseason, but you've got all these other guys that have come in. Appleton's one of them, who we've talked about in the interview so far, but there are several guys that were cheap additions, but they also fit better than some of the existing veterans that then got deployed down to Grand Rapids. And you have to imagine that having those guys in Grand Rapids will improve kind of the evenness of the system to a degree because, hey, maybe they're not cutting it up at the Red Wings level, and maybe they did need to be moved on from, but at the same time, they're probably helping guys down in Grand Rapids that we may even see in the course of the season, to your point.
Yeah, for sure. They sent veterans, Eric Gustafson and Justin Hall down right at the start of the season when Standing Pellica was a surprise addition to the roster, making it in training camp. To your point about the goalies, it is a little bit surprising that Talbot has kind of emerged in the early going here as he's having a better season right now. Gibson really needs to find more consistency, and I think when they started the season, they kind of envisioned Gibson as being the workhorse, playing maybe like a 50-30 split in terms of starts. But right now, the way it's going, almost probably if Talbot continues to win, he's 7-2. They're going to have to basically alternate. I'm sure they would like to play Gibson 2 out of every 3 games because Talbot's the second oldest goalie in the league, and they don't want to overwork him. Interestingly, Quick is actually the oldest goalie in the league. So the 2 oldest faced off, opposed each other twice this season. But anyway, it is a concern because of Talbot's age and Gibson coming off that injury last season. And there was a bit of a quandary. They were fortunate that Gibson's injury over the weekend wasn't serious at all and was able to come back the next game. because both of their goalies in Grand Rapids, Kosa and Postava, are out with injuries, so they would have had a problem there. But they definitely need some help and some depth throughout the organization in that.
You make a good point about the timing of that, because part of me, when you talk about some of these depth things and especially the young guys, that is where now they have a little bit of a log jam to a degree. They've got two goalies playing well in Grand Rapids, like you said. They've got one performing very well in college. He's a little bit away, but they've got a lot of good goalies in their system here. And so part of you would say, okay, well, maybe the fact that Gibson might have to take an early season injury, or Talbot, because he's on the older side, have to take a few games off, then you could maybe shuffle Kosa up to see what he's got. But yeah, at that time that wouldn't have worked well, but I could see that at some point in this season, given the combination of age and injury history with the two Red Wings goalies here.
Without a doubt. I mean, to think that they're going to go the entire season with only Gibson and Talbot. Gibson's, I think, 32. Talbot is 38. That, one or both of those guys isn't going to get injured. Both have had a history of injuries. That's just not going to happen. I mean, that would take they'd have to be quite lucky for that, for both of those guys to be unscathed. So we're going to see somebody from Grand Rapids up at some point this season, maybe both of those guys. And, not necessarily Kosa, even though he was billed as the goalie of the future. It's going to be whoever's playing the best out of Kosa or Postava, I would assume would get the first crack at it if there's an injury up here.
That's interesting. So you think it's going to be, I mean, obviously everything is performance-based, but you think it's just going to be the hotter goalie would go up based on kind of the recent history? They wouldn't necessarily prioritize Kosa since he's been in the system for longer?
Yeah, that's what I think. A lot of times, too, what happens is if they need somebody just for a game or two as a backup, then they won't take the goalie that's playing. They won't take the better goalie away from Grand Rapids because they want him to, the Griffins want, whoever the Griffins want to start, they keep him there. But if it's just a backup, they'll take like the number two goalie. But if it's to play a game, if they need it, if one of their goalies, one of the Red Wings goalies is out for an extended period of time, to the point where they're going to have to play one of those Grand Rapids guys, then it wouldn't necessarily be Kosa. I think it would be whoever's playing better. Because you got to remember, Postava, doesn't have any NHL experience, but he does. It's just a Czech league, you can say, but he has extensive experience playing there, and he won a championship there, so he knows what it's like in a little bit of a pressure situation, and also playing against men. Whichever, like I said, whichever one is separated, if even one separates himself, then I would expect that guy to be the one who gets the first shot up here.
That'll be an interesting battle to watch, especially because they kind of have a 1A, 1B situation at both levels that, like you said, may have flipped on both levels here. But we got to take a quick break. We'll come back here with Ansar Khan of MLive and talk some more hockey and see where he sees the season heading and if they need to shore up any weaknesses here. But stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back with Ansar Khan of MLive, talking some puck. I'm curious who has stuck out to you so far. I know we talked about the young guys, and obviously, I feel like a lot of these interviews that we do on the different teams, it happens with every team. It doesn't matter if it's the Red Wings or the Pistons or the Lions. We have a tendency to kind of undervalue or maybe not talk about kind of the stars. Raymond was a guy that's an obvious young star of the team, but was a little bit cold, let's say. He had the injury earlier in the season, but you kind of highlighted that hopefully this will be something that brings him back, because I feel like it happened with DeBrincat earlier in the year where, man, he was so close. He was hitting every part of that post and the crossbar and both posts, but he was not able to get that puck in. Then once he did, the levee kind of broke and he was able to get in more. That play that Raymond made, which was a great one, hopefully that'll be something that'll help him surge as the season progresses here.
Yeah, I think one of their issues here is the usual suspects are producing. Larkin, DeBrincat is hot right now. Raymond is hot. Kane coming back from that injury, but they know what he can do. Those four guys mainly are carrying the offense. They really need more secondary scoring. A guy like Marco Kasper, who had a tremendous second half last season as a rookie, they need to get him going. Veterans like they need more secondary scoring, or any secondary scoring from guys like Kopp, Comfort, and Rasmussen. You just can't have those top end guys, top four you can call them, just carrying the team. They need more support there. I think that's going to be one of the keys going forward.
Do you see that coming from people on the existing roster? And who, I know you talked about a couple names, and obviously one is Kasper, who's got a lot of skill, but isn't necessarily finding the same flow. Probably trying to deal with the different rotations, and he's a young guy starting off the year, even though he had a good year last year. Who are some of the other guys that you see as being able to kind of level themselves up as the season goes on?
Kasper would be the main one. I think he scored 19 goals last year, and I believe he has 3 so far. We're about 19 games into the season. He can produce more, and he's a guy that plays consistently in the top 6. And those other guys that I mentioned, they can get more out of Kopp, Rasmussen, and Comfort. And if not, then they're going to have to look for offense through a trade. As far as areas of the team that can improve, I mean, you could say the same about the defense too. It'll be interesting to see as we get closer to the still a long ways away, the March 6th deadline. If they're still in this playoff race by then, whether Yzerman elects to just stand pat like he did last year, or if he makes a move and brings somebody in who can have an impact. You'll recall, a little bit of controversy after the season when Donna Larkin said, players were a little disappointed that a move was made at the trade deadline when they were in the race. Yzerman didn't really appreciate that, saying, countering with, well, we needed our best players to be our best players in March, and they weren't. That's been a problem for them the last 2 or 3 years. They just faltered in March, and it'll be interesting to see what happens this year, assuming that they're still in it. And I think they will be. The league is really, there's a tremendous amount of parity. There's not a whole lot of separation. About the only thing you can count on is the Buffalo Sabres missing the playoffs.
That they were brought up as one of the longest streaks here currently with some of the Jets and some of the other ones we see, the New York Jets across sports. But I'm curious about that part with the trade deadline, because one of the things that was interesting to me about the Gibson trade is that there was some talk about that at the trade deadline. They just didn't have the right circumstances to make that deal, and then they ended up doing it in the offseason, obviously. So I'm hoping that since Yzerman has been in the fold for a while and making some of these discussions, hopefully he can make a move or be better positioned to do that at the trade deadline if they need to, because not that they already need a change. I think there are a lot of reasons for hope right now with the young guys, with the veterans that they layered in there, and the fact that this isn't going to be the final roster, most likely, even if you don't make a player acquisition during the season, because of some of the guys you're talking about in Grand Rapids and elsewhere that could filter up and then fill in some of those roles and then take some of that slack and get something going. But you brought up the defense that has seemed to improve, but man, the transition has been tough for them. I feel like last year it seemed to be kind of fortifying things in front of the net. This year they do have even guys like Sider, who are clearly key parts of this team. They do have some key giveaways that have led to a lot of chances from the other teams. So that's something they've got to be looking at too. Guys that are solid at that back line, both defensively, but able to make that puck transition and move it up the ice, because that's been one of the most glaring weaknesses to me is being able to transition from defense to offense and not lead to an opposing break.
Yeah, I think it was it wasn't the Buffalo game, but the game before that, where Sandin Pellica was benched for the last 15 minutes. Concerns about some defensive play there. He made the team based on his skills, his offensive ability, his ability to play on the second power play unit. But it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward, whether they intend to continue. He's played in the top four all season, and it is a lot to ask for a 20-year-old. Can he keep it up? If not, I could see a scenario where they make a trade for a veteran defenseman and send him down because he's certainly not going to play. He's not going to be an extra up here when he can be playing 20, 25 minutes a game in Grand Rapids. And I also think that they want him to be on that second pairing. If they feel he's not good enough to be on that second pairing, I'm pretty sure they're not going to play him on the 12 minutes a game on the third pairing up here when he can be logging twice as many minutes in all situations down in Grand Rapids. So that's something to keep an eye on as well moving forward here.
Interesting. So you think they'd opt to re-slot that? That's something I always like watching from a roster standpoint, because really the best way to improve your roster is if you can take the existing pieces and kind of push them down. But in hockey, especially with a young player like you're talking about, being able to cycle back and forth between the AHL and the NHL, the best option may not be to push them down the lines at the NHL level. It may be to get more minutes at the AHL level, and then you're strengthening kind of both at the same time, because you still got some third, fourth line guys that are strengthened at the NHL level in getting experience there, and then you've got more minutes for them to get a little bit more seasoning at the AHL level. So yeah, I feel like that's been the main thing really for the off season and the last couple trade deadlines is hey, they could use some defensive reinforcements, but it just doesn't seem like they've found the right fit. It kind of seems similar to the goalie situation, where they know they've got some guys brewing in the system. They've got some young guys that should be the future, but they need a John Gibson style move there. They need a guy that can fill in until those reinforcements are ready. Yeah,
with Sam and Pellica, like you said, they got the flexibility there. That he can obviously he still has a couple of years left where he can go down without waivers, so it'll depend entirely on his play, they've got Bernard Docker and Travis Hamonek. Both of those guys have been kind of rotating in and out of the lineup. but you don't really see either of those guys at the top being the second pairing. They're mainly, third pairing guys. They could move Albert Johansson up to the second pairing, which he did a good job the second half of last year. But I also suspect that if they feel Sandin Pelika isn't quite ready, he doesn't really have much pro experience in North America. He only played a few games for the Griffins last year. If they feel he's not ready, I would suspect that they would look to upgrade that position rather than move the young Johansson up to the second pairing.
They've got some flexibility. I feel like that's the main thing that I've taken out of, this interview and the season as a whole, because it just felt like they were kind of lacking resources last season. You could see some holes, but they weren't really able to fill them with what they had on the roster. Whereas they've got some guys to try. They've held pretty nicely with the current roster, and they've got some young guys that, hey, the other factor that we're not talking about is these guys could look a lot different at the end of the season than they do at the beginning, because young guys traditionally are the ones that can have the biggest improvement over the course of the season because something clicks, the experience helps, and they find their fit on the ice. They benefit from the coaching and the mentorship from the more experienced guys, because they have that. They have Larkin, they have Kane, one of the most experienced guys in the NHL right now. They get added Van Riemsdyk, so it'll be an interesting season. I'm excited for it, and like I said, they keep it interesting. But appreciate you coming on to cover them for us. Hopefully we'll get you back on, but want to make sure to give you a chance to direct people to your coverage here as well.
Yeah, it's MLive.com.
Be sure to follow him there. There's a lot of hockey coverage that he does, and a lot of great coverage there as a whole, but be sure to follow the articles there, and we appreciate you joining the show, and we'll look forward to having you on another time here.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks. Talk to you later. Thanks to Ansar Khan. Appreciate him joining us as well.